Alrighty. Welcome, everyone. My guest today, he might just be the funniest man in Australian enterprise AI. If you're on LinkedIn and you follow him, you know what I mean. He's French, which explains all the charm. He's also an aviation geek. He started his career at Air France, and airlines have followed him through most of his roles ever since. He's worked on loyalty machine learning, operational tools, and all the systems that run behind the scenes, keeping planes on schedule. He's got years of data and digital delivery experience across both Paris and Sydney. And today, he's the principal of enterprise AI and technology at Terem. Terem is an Aussie tech consultancy, and his work mainly splits between two main things that people are constantly confusing. The first thing is building with AI, so rewiring how engineering teams deliver using agents inside that workflow. And second, building AI, which is basically putting the agentic products into production inside large commercial organizations and governments. Two completely different disciplines, and today he's going to untangle them both for us. JC, welcome to the show.
Mac, great to be here. Thanks for the invite. And yeah, looking forward to this chat. There's a lot to untangle. A lot of it will be probably personal views and battle scars from real life clients.
I'm so excited to get into it. You're one of the best people, I think, in Australia to speak to about this. Now, there aren't too many people actually properly putting this stuff into production, so very excited.
Yeah, and it's probably not only me. It's always a team effort, and obviously, it's a big part of this is thanks to our clients are keen to explore new ways of working, new tools. So it's always a teamwork. It's obviously not me alone. I'm just the one posting the funny stuff on LinkedIn, but I can talk about it.
Alrighty, let's get into it. So there was this article I found on your guys' website about the 6 levels of agentic engineering. If possible, I'd love to go through it. And if we can, we probably will have a fairly technical audience, but it'd be good if we can simplify it in plain English as much as possible in case there are some business owners or non-technical people watching too.
Yeah, awesome. So the 5 or 6 levels actually came from Anthropic to start with. There might be a few different maturity ladders out there, but this one was just reflecting on what Anthropic was saying. I can go through the 6 levels quickly and just put it plainly for the audience. We start at level 0, which is basically it's your chat-based AI, so your ChatGPT, Claude, etc., with no file access. So imagine a human will just copy paste whatever he needs in a chat window and wait for an answer back. So it's pretty much just you calling a consultant, asking a question, it will respond to you. So that's level 0, the basics. Then you move to level 1, which is the start of the AI agentic side of things. So this is where your AI starts doing things in the editor, like autocomplete, for example, inline suggestions. But your engineer or your person managing that still drives everything. So everything is triggered by a human, reviewed by a human, and pretty much it stops there. So the one task automatically done, but both sides are triggered manually. Level 2 is when you start seeing real agentic uplift. So this is when let's say you take a task end to end. So if you think about a engineering team in the software development lifecycle, for example, you can think about your design, BA requirements, engineering coding, your QA reviewing, and then you have to deploy it to production. So that's the workflow that we often go through with clients. And the agent will then read your code base, make the changes themselves based on requirements, run the test automatically. And I guess you have still a human reviewing every gate, so you want to make sure that the output is correct. So that's where it starts becoming interesting. Level 3 is the same thing, but with parallel workflow. So, for example, I don't know if you've played with Claude, for example. Now you can launch a task. It might take a while to respond. The more complicated the task, the more time it takes, especially in coding. It could take hours, even if you have a large code base. And in between, the engineer is not going to roll its thumbs. He can do actual other work streams at the same time and launch other tasks. And so that's the parallel workflow. Level 4 is, I guess, what we call headless. So that's more event-based agentic. So the agent will run part of the workflows without being asked. And you go in until deployment, like a pull request triggers something like a review agent, a spec triggers a build, etc. So that it becomes pretty autonomous. It responds on specific events that happen on your website or in your tasks. Sort of in engineering terms, for example, it could be a Jira ticket moves to a new status and automatically gets picked for a review to move to the next handoff. Level 5 is a bit tricky. We don't know exactly in which direction this is going to go yet. It's very nascent in essence. Um, it's the concept of, I guess, where humans review intent and outcomes, but they don't necessarily have a say in between. So you can think about the example we use is how ants communicate between each other. So it's the concept of stigmergy, where no one single ant worker will know everything the hive is doing pretty much. And so they just leave markers here and there. There's food at this place, there's a task to be done, like a place to defend, that sort of things. And you can think of agents in the same way, where they will just leave markers in their environment and for other agents to come in and pick them pretty much autonomously. can't say this word. But that's pretty much, I guess, the 6 levels. And to put it back in context for our Australian enterprise, it's interesting because a lot of enterprise tend to think they're probably higher up in that ladder than they actually are. So quite often we get people we talk to saying we're probably already at level 2, level 3, even level 4 in some instances. But when you dig a bit into it, it's more aspirational in a sense, because yes, the technology might be here, but they haven't changed anything around the way their teams work, and that makes it very complicated for them to get the whole benefits from these new stages, pretty much. So I hope this summarizes more or less what it is. Yeah, happy to answer any other question on this one.
Yeah, definitely. That's really clear. What So the average kind of organization that you speak to, what do they usually have to do? What kind of steps do they need to take to go up in the levels? And where are they usually at one or two? And then how do they actually, like, practically do it? Because you mentioned team, which is a big part.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting. So a lot of it is reorganizing your teams and org charts, but a lot of enterprise don't do it or haven't done it yet because obviously it takes a lot of effort, change management, etc. The thing that happens is a lot of enterprise buy their way through to level 1, which is pretty much buying a bunch of licenses, Copilot, Claude, etc. And they give it to their teams and say, we've done AI, you have a big productivity boost because now you can prompt and you can ask whatever you want to the AI. But to some extent, it's quite limited in the way. I guess what we see is that you will have usage peaking around week 3, but by month 6 or 7, you realize that nothing has really moved as a system. So everyone is doing his own little sauce and trying different things in different ways. And it tends to add to the technical depth that a lot of these enterprises are trying to avoid. So the thing that we tend to recommend to our clients is really starting small, trying on either a known code base or greenfields. Doesn't really matter. Greenfields is sometimes easier because you're not tied to specific ways of working. Usually it's a new team coming in and you can plug in new processes. What we tend to recommend, though, is to try to uplift the whole team at once. So, for example, if you make your engineers free time faster, you've pretty much just moved the queue, and now design has to go way faster to provide enough work for the engineers to do. And the same thing happens in the review process, where you have a lot more work to be QA'd. So the reviewer becomes the bottleneck. And I guess what works usually it's lifting the whole pod. We have to be ready for some of the roles to blur a little bit in the thing they do. So typically if you get now you can get a BA who can generate pretty much a working prototype from a spec, a QA who writes an eval harness before the code exists. A lot of the gain comes from removing that waiting time between roles. So traditionally, you will have a ticket that sits in Jira for a time until someone can review it. But with agentic, you can pretty much automate a lot of this and also find a number of edge cases before it goes to QA rather than during the QA. So that's overall, it's more like a workflow redesign that will help get faster in your teams.
So kind of looking for the actual bottleneck in delivering value and then like opening that up.
Yeah, that's right. And a big part of it as well is when you go through that process with, especially in enterprise, there are a number of existing workflows that happen. But going through that process, it makes people think about what actually makes sense in these workflows. And they have to, before they automate it, they have to really assess if it's still the correct one to have. Otherwise, you're just automating things that don't need to exist at all sometimes. And it's just a waste of effort. Elon Musk, who was saying that there's nothing more costly than an engineer automating the wrong things. And it's making sure that you remove all the friction steps that are really not necessary.
And what are the typical ways that you'll recommend restructuring the teams? Like what is that actually like? Do you have an example of how that would be done? Like maybe a before and after?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily having less people. So a lot of the things I can see online is, or discussions I can have with leadership sometimes is, we have AI, how many people can I remove to get the same output? And that's kind of the wrong way to see things in a sense, because it's just giving back more capacity to your own teams. And I guess today, if you remove a big bunch of your people and the knowledge they have, it's more likely that you're going to have to rehire in a few months once you realize that your competitors are actually having a full team and just producing a lot more than you are. And at the same time, you lost your key knowledge. So that's probably something that you would want to avoid.
So not necessarily trying to when you say restructure or like kind of reorganize the team, it's not about reducing headcount necessarily. Is there like are there any tips or I guess practical ways? So say someone is a CEO right now or CTO and they're thinking kind of like you were thinking, as you mentioned before. So they're thinking, okay, I've got AI now. I should try and remove some people. How should they be thinking? Like, any tips and tricks on that?
Again, it's a question around what they want to measure, probably. Um, a big part of it is what is AI and agentic gonna help my company do in terms of increasing value for whatever task we have to do. So when you think about the cost of running a team, and you want to make sure that they're as efficient as possible in the tasks they're doing. So that's where I think we have a number of measures that we can implement in enterprise. Things like um, understanding the workflow coverage, for example. So you start implementing AI, but what's the eligible percentage of delivery activities that you can do using AI approved workflows? What's the validated measured capacity release? So, for example, we had a client recently, after, let's say, a 4 weeks investment in AI uplift, they realized they can get about 3 hours back per person per task. And over the life of a project or across a year, you're probably looking at a full FTE capacity back that they can redirect to additional task, additional value for the enterprise with the same salary pretty much. And then it's also how much quality you can have implementing these processes. So instead of reworking over and over the same things, how many of these items benefit from a first pass go that avoid, again, all this cost associated. So when you put it all together, I think for the CEOs and CFOs, of course, there's going to be a cost around the tooling, and there are ways that you can, I guess, make sure that it's mostly the most efficient possible, and you have to compare that to the value of the output that your AI capacity has created. So it's an economics exercise to go through, but it's quite compelling when you put it together, knowing the current levels of efficiencies in big enterprise.
Just to make sure I understand that. So first thing is, like, yes, there's a lot of ways you can add value using AI, but make sure you choose the right problem to solve, because if you solve the wrong thing, it won't actually increase the total value that's like
Yeah.
throughput.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways of doing that is kind of being very specific about like one or maybe one thing that you really want to do, get that good, measure it properly. And like in your client example, it can free up a lot of capacity, but it might not be so smart to just go, okay, let's get rid of everyone, because there's heaps of risk associated with that. And like people losing their knowledge, and I guess like tokens, which we'll probably get to at some point, and things like that. So better to like go, okay, let's use the same team. Now let's just add a heap more value to
Yeah.
whatever we're
A-
doing.
And when you look at ongoing projects in big enterprise, there is no lack of existing work. It's usually a big backlog, and whether it's IT or other departments, they're just trying to catch up on a number of things. And oftentimes they will just go to consultants and get a spike and invest in projects that they just don't have the capacity to be delivering themselves. And by restructuring a bit the ways of working, they can actually free that capacity to do more projects internally and provide more value in that fashion. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's the long-term view is when you have some sort of engineering project or digital project, you could probably manage it in the future with a two to three people team. So right now you're probably looking at least 5 to 10 people in a team to develop a project. But tomorrow you could um, probably focus on two roles. One is uh, a domain expert that will set the intent, and that could be capturing the requirements, designing a prototype, writing the specs with an agent, and then hand that over to another set of agents that will code the prototype. And you only have then a second role, which is more a technical lead, reviewing what the output was. And the rest, you can imagine that a lot of it can be managed with agents and just a couple of people that review that the intent and the output match. That's again, that means that for some people it might be smaller teams, reducing headcount, but for others it just means that smaller teams can actually go through a lot more and a few different projects at the same time.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What would you say? I mean, you specialize in doing this stuff for companies. What would you say is you don't have to give their name or anything, just a client project you've worked on where you felt like the result of your work was really, really great?
Yeah, I think the example I gave around the 3 hours saved per role and per feature is again within a 4 weeks agentic uplift with a client that's very keen to improve ways of working and explore new things as well. Um, we started small, just proving the point. Um, we don't like to work in PowerPoint, so we just um, use what you would call an internal deployed engineer or embedded engineers and BAs and QAs, and we go sit with the client, um, spend let's say a week onboarding on a project, understand the features, and I guess from week 2 onwards to week 3, uh, we just start automating the workflows agree on a number of agents, um, write down all the skills that will go with it, the evals, etc., all the framework that they need to implement at enterprise level. And within 4 weeks, again, we focus on engineering to start with, but they already see that time saving coming back. So the next step is then extending this to, I guess, BA, QA, design, etc.
I guess where I think would be cool to go next is the actual. So you sat with the team, you got onboarded, you learned what they're doing, what features they're building, and then you started implementing the figuring out how do you put these agents in, what kind of skills and evals and things like that. What what is your preferred, I guess, like stack at the moment, your agent stack or your tech stack?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, we're an Anthropic partner, so I guess a lot of the work we do and the way we talk about things are probably skewed to Claude, Anthropic a bit. But at the same time, we've been an agnostic company for a long time in the sense that we just adapt to whatever our clients want to do. And so some of them are using Copilot, for example, or they will be on OpenAI, Gemini. Whatever the tool is they're all working in a pretty similar fashion. Um, it's mostly, I guess, it's probably more a question of model selection for the right task. So if you're using Fable 5 from Anthropic for every task, you're pretty much gonna, I mean, you're not gonna use Fable to fix a typo. You just keep it for expensive uh, task where you need to think about the output a lot, and for other simpler tasks or things that you can, you can repeat it easily. You just want to make sure that you use a right size model, whether it's Sonnet, Opus, Haiku, etc., or the equivalent in OpenAI, Gemini, etc. That's probably I guess a more important question for enterprise, especially the more they move in the maturity ladder to make sure they control the cost. And also probably the ability to switch from one model, but also one provider to another, because um, you don't know what the next 12 months are going to be about. So you don't know which model will take over. Every 4 weeks, pretty much, you get a new release with a new, more powerful model, and everyone might move to another company, etc. So you want to be, you want to make sure you're not locked into a specific vendor, and I think that will become more and more an important consideration for people to manage cost.
So when you go into a project like the 4-week sprint that you did, where you unlocked a ton of value, are you like how does that actually look? Like, are you giving them, say, like training them on how to use Claude Code and setting up an environment for them there and the skills and the right evals? Or is it you're more just using the API to call the different Claude models, but you're using another like set of technologies to actually kind of like run the agents?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing to dig into, because a lot of providers out there are probably selling a secret sauce of how they do things. But the reality is that there are engineers in every company that are totally capable to do that themselves. It's just takes a bit of time to ramp up on how to do it, and making sure you do it in the right order as well. So the way we work is we never bring our own Claude tools or OpenAI tools directly. We use whatever is available to the client, and we sit down with them and we pair with engineers, BA on the client side to make sure that first, whatever we build is adapted to their specific workflow, which is very important. The context is very important. And everything we build is built together with their team, so that at the same time as we build it, every week we would sit down multiple times with them in workshops to show them what we're doing, how we implement skills, how do we implement plugins, how do we implement evals, and make sure that they also make sense. Like, you don't want an agent to create his own test on what he should be passing or failing, because he might just make sure that he passes every time by himself. So you just want to set up the exact framework that the company will go through, linked to the risk appetite as well, depending on the task. There are some tasks that you can fully automate, some others that need to be reviewed by a human, especially in government context. So when you have customer data potentially involved, and doing it that way with the clients. So by the end of week 4, they already have a good understanding of what has happened during the 4 weeks. And the idea is to leave them the IP. So if after the 4 weeks they want to continue to work with us, great. We're happy to help them probably go a bit faster than they would by themselves. But if not, they can also take over and just continue building on top of whatever we left with them. So the training happens at the same time. And we give them also some sort of roadmap to think about for the next few months after the program, so that, again, they can be totally independent in exploring that at their own pace if they want, or pause, take it over again in a few months, that sort of things.
That seems like a really, really nice, authentic way to work and to add value.
Yes, it's probably something that's a bit different with how Terem does things, because you can see there's a lot of major providers out there, or the big AI labs, that actually provide a lot of free hours of consulting inside enterprise to, yes, help them do AI faster, but also somehow all the use cases are linked to their specific stack. And sometimes the workflows, they're trying to retrofit their tools into workflows that sometimes don't necessarily need them. So that's why it's a bit the difference between what you call a forward deploy engineer, which is sent by a vendor or an AI lab directly in your company to lock you in, and I guess an internal deployed engineer who comes on behalf of the company to help you decide and automate in the best way possible for the use case you have. So that's a bit the two different models that you can see in the market today. One of them is probably involving a larger bill down the track than the other. And again, we can only recommend enterprise to make sure they own their own IP and use cases and workflows. And a lot of them try to do it, but they're not necessarily advised by providers to do it that way.
So you've worked in tech and data for a while. How has your personal I guess your daily workflow changed with the newest AI tools?
Um, so I guess my everyday workflows have changed quite a bit in terms of how I've probably automated a lot of the repetitive tasks and the way I do things. So, um, making sure that I keep track of what's happening in my day is a big thing because, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of context switching that happens, and sometimes you drop the ball on certain topics. So I would use a tool like Cowork, for example, to check if I drop the ball on any topic during the day. It will send me a reminder at the end of the day and the beginning of the day of tasks that I had to complete, like a to-do list, or help me explore new ideas on how to I guess implement AI and agentic on specific sectors. So doing the research around. At the moment, I'm using AI to support energy and mining asset management tools. So exploring how agentic can help these industries go faster in their adoption. Um, a lot of it is also analyzing the information that comes back to us and finding these sometimes edge cases that we don't think about. So you have a requirement session, you're looking at a prototype, and you can analyze based on a specific code base that you know exists, where it's going to break potentially, what other questions you might want to ask to make sure that you understand the intent. And just overall, it's automating a lot of the research, not necessarily the thinking behind it, but exploring new ideas and putting them together in a way that makes sense for a specific workflow or a specific feature or a specific tool. That does save quite a bit of time in my daily life. Um, yeah, that's probably the where I use it. I know for some of our engineers that have let's say 5 or 6 parallel tasks at once. Some of them created dashboards to keep them up to date on where they are at for each task, what they need to launch next, what they need to review. Um, because maybe one part that we are not talking much about yet with AI is the the AI brain fry, in a sense. You spend a lot of your time prompting and just reviewing, and you need to make sure that you keep enough mental space to really analyze things properly. And it becomes quite quickly difficult the more you switch context. Um, I went to an AI community gathering a few days ago, and one of the presenters put it in a very nice way: is try to focus on each person's 20% that they really, really like in their job, and let them be with that 20%, even if it's something you can automate, because it makes them feel good about what they're doing. They enjoy it. But at the same time, you can probably automate the 80% that they likely don't like about their job, make their life easier. And like that, it's AI fatigue, but at the same time, it can be balanced by the fact that you're focusing more on the things that make you relevant in the role and make you feel happy about your day. So I thought that was a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a new take that I haven't heard before. I guess it makes you wonder, if you can automate the 20%, why hire them? I guess.
They're already they're already there. Especially in if you take an industry like mining or even energy, it's very specialized, very senior, very experienced people, and they're already under resourced, greatly under resourced, so they can't let go anyone really, because it's gonna be a major pain to rehire. You're probably gonna have to pay a lot more to attract someone, etc. But if you can free some of their capacity, then that's where the value is at the moment for these sectors. It's probably different in pure IT, where currently there's probably a lot of people available, but highly specialized knowledge is very, I think it's very important to keep them happy.
Mm.
And it's not something you can replace by AI straight off the bat, because AI can give you a lot of good indications, but they might not know specific decisions that were made in a specific context until you train properly your AI on this. But that's more likely to be um, models that are trained specifically by one enterprise to fit their processes rather than a frontier lab.
Where do you see jobs going in the next, 12 months, 2 years, based on what you're seeing with, like what's possible with AI and agentic at the moment?
I think it's like everywhere. It's probably a pace of change that's become a lot faster. But at the same time, the people that are willing to explore a bit and understand how AI is not all bad, it's actually helping them achieve probably more and provide more value. As long as you can describe the value you can bring with your own expertise on top of AI, I think my view is that this probably has been a bit of a dip while we find our feet. But I see it as in the next few months, few years, companies are going to start to rehire quite a lot once they understand their new ways of working, new workflows, to just accelerate the pace of their output and just to create more value. Now, of course, it means that enterprise needs to understand what actually matters in terms of projects and what they want to release, what they want to do. So a lot of that is strategic. But at the same time, a lot of it is operational. How do you execute on your strategy is going to become uh, where a lot of the cost saving is going to go. But also where a lot of the additional value potentially will come from. So I'm quite positive. I think for me, I can see a endless uh, endless work to be done here in Australia. I can imagine it's similar everywhere around the world, but I would just recommend people to just explore a bit more what they can be doing and maybe adapt their messaging to reflect that. Not not to apply just asking Claude to write everything, but really making sure they can understand what the company is trying to do in that role and how they can bring the value to that role.
Would you say you're working more or less with since AI and Claude Code and
Probably working about the same. I always enjoyed my job quite a bit. So whether it's Terem or even before, so I always spend a lot of hours on it. But I think my output has probably multiplied by a few times just because of all these parallel tasks that you can launch, or you think about something, and between the time you have an idea and the time you can actually action on it, it's very it's becoming very quick to produce something, and then you have to review it. You have to improve yourself. It's pretty much creating a bit of a digital twin for yourself on how you think about things and what you want to explore and how you want to take it to the next level. And so this happens in the job, happens also outside the job. So, for example, a couple of weekends ago, I had an idea for a mobile app. So I started, I know nothing about iOS development, but thanks to ChatGPT and Claude, you can easily understand how to create an app. And so I started producing that at my night time just for fun. But the same applies again in my daily work. It's things to explore, um, and then the required thinking around it to evolve an idea into something you can execute. It's probably where I spend a lot more time now.
And are there any final tips that you have for anyone who's still watching on how they can integrate AI better into their life or their business? Anything you've learned over the past year or two?
I think I just summarize it for enterprise. Start small, identify a couple of people that are keen to explore, um, define a easy enough code base to do work on, and take your features end to end, prove the point, prove the value, measure it, and that's most likely going to be one of the first few projects you will have in enterprise today. And if you can take it end to end, I think there's a lot of light that will be shining on these projects at the moment. So I would encourage a lot of internal teams to explore that and try to put something in production, as opposed to all the demos and POCs. You just want to prove it on real stuff.
And is there anyone else in Australia who you think's doing really good work when it comes to AI, but not many people are talking about?
Um, that there's, I think there's a ton of talent in Australia. There's a lot of people exploring. So I won't recommend any specific person or company, but there's a lot of good work happening in pockets. And I think we probably want to explore a bit more with these smaller size companies that are actually putting in the work to train themselves and to know what they're doing and bringing that expertise to enterprise. Um, I, I can I can see there's a lot of these in the people I talk to, and as opposed to how we used to do probably projects before with bigger vendors, more impersonal stuff. I think a lot of that is just trusting the smaller players a bit more to deliver the value at a better cost probably. And I think a lot of that talent exists in Australia today. So quite looking forward to continue exchanging with other people and learning from each other. It's fast-paced environment. What we're doing today might not make any sense tomorrow. And there's always someone trying something new somewhere, a new tech, a new program of work, a new AI-powered tool. And I think it's just gonna keep becoming better.
Love it. And what's the best way for people to contact you if they want to reach out?
They can reach out on LinkedIn is probably an easy place. Jean-Christophe Gosselin. Happy for people to visit Terem.tech website as well. There's a lot of good playbooks there, insights on I guess, the work we do, but also the way we think about agentic and what people should think about if they're looking to explore the field. So always happy to have a chat with anyone.
Fantastic. JC, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. You dropped a lot of golden nuggets on us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mac. No, that was great. Thanks for bearing with me and my cough. And no, just thanks again. And I think it's great what you're doing with your podcast. Great initiative. And again, thanks for the invite. And hopefully, I gave a couple of ideas on how to explore AI in the near future.
Absolutely, you did. I really appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on, and I hope you get better soon. And anyone who's still watching, thanks for coming along the journey with us. See you later.